The invocation will be given by Reverend Farrell Duncan, who is the pastor of St. Paul AME Church, where Mrs. Parks was a member when she was arrested. And at that time, his father, I understand, was a pastor of the church as well. Minister Duncan, if you would come forward, and after Minister Duncan, Senator Vivian Figures will give remarks. After Senator Figures, we will have greetings from the state legislative caucus members, Representative John Knight, Representative Anthony Daniels, and as others come in, we will recognize them at that time. Thank you.
May we pray. O Lord, our Heavenly Father, Almighty and everlasting God, who has safely brought us to the beginning of this day, accept our overwhelming thanks for the abundance of blessings you have given us individually and collectively as a state, as a nation, and as your people. Give us grace seriously to lay to heart the great dangers we are in by our unhappy divisions. Take away, O God, whatsoever may hinder us from union and concord, that as there is but one body, one spirit, one hope of our calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of us all, so that we may be of one heart and of one soul, united in one holy bond of truth, love, peace, and faith, whereby we can glorify you by recognizing those who are called according to your purpose, your will, and your divine plan. Bless now the officiants of churches and schools and those individuals who must superintend the lives of others by ratifying and drafting laws that will better serve those who are made in your image. We seek these blessings and offer this prayer in the name of he who is, he who was, and he who is yet to come. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
My furry friend here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I know it's raining outside, but it is sunshine in here, and I just felt the spirit coming in here saying this. I hate to see what it's going to be like when they start session today. First of all, I give honor and praises and thanksgiving to my gracious Heavenly Father, because you see, I have a new blessing and a new testimony. As I drove up here this morning from Mobile, many of you know it was raining very hard, whoever traveled the road that I did up I-65. My car actually hydroplaned. But for the grace of God, there were no cars around me. That car swagged from left lane to right lane, and I just held on to the steering wheel and said, Jesus, Jesus. And it straightened up. And the thing about it, Bishop Seawright, is I wasn't even afraid. I had no fear because I know I'm in his hands. So I thank him first. Secondly, I thank the African Methodist Episcopal 9th District, where Bishop Harry Seawright is the bishop, for initiating this effort to honor Rosa Macaulay Parks. I felt honored when I was asked to handle the bill in the Senate, and as we talked, we felt that it would be more appropriate to do it in March, because this is Women's History Month. And I was very honored as well because, you know, God orders our steps. And little did I know that I would be in this position today from decades ago when I first met Mrs. Parks. And I wasn't an elected official or anything. I was a senator's wife at that time. She was over in Baldwin County at an event, and I was so excited to go and meet her. I had to get up early in the morning, so I was dressing in the bathroom back and forth. Didn't want to turn the lights on my husband on this Saturday morning. So I had to find my shoes in the dark. Once I got in the car and was in the light, I saw I had a navy blue shoe on and a black shoe. But I was so excited to see Rosa Parks, I said, forget about the shoes. I'm going to see Rosa Parks. And that was such a blessed meeting with her because she is so humble. She was so meek and mild, but she did such great things for all of us. So we all stand on her shoulders here today. Another opportunity I had was when they were filming the Rosa Parks story here in Montgomery, where Angela Bassett played Rosa Parks. It was then Governor Siegelman here, and he hosted a dinner for the cast. And I was invited, and I was talking to the producers, and they said, well, do you want to be in the movie? I said, are you serious? So they said, show up. So I had a wee bit part in that movie. You see the back of me and the back of my legs with those seamed holes on going into the store. But I have to tell you, being on that set, being a part of the Rosa Parks story, it was such an honor and so humbling. So again, now that I'm in this place to introduce the bill in the Senate, to make December 1st Rosa Parks Day in the great state of Alabama is an awesome thing. So again, I thank you, Bishop, and the 9th District of the African Methodist Episcopal Church for initiating this effort, and we look forward to that bill passing and us celebrating the first Rosa Parks Day on December 1st, 2018. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. To Honorable Bishop C. Wright, my bishop, and to the distinguished representatives and senators who are with us today, and especially special thanks to Representative Laura Hall and Senator Figures. Let's give them a round of applause for their leadership. As we celebrate today honoring a woman, a trailblazer, who have paved the way for so many of us in this room. You know, as I think about what she endured her entire life under oppression. She too was surrounded by injustice, surrounded by people black and white who resided in Jim Crow apartheid and who thought that change was impossible. But she didn't allow what was around her to determine her destiny. But in her own dignified, dramatic way, she insisted on justice and she insisted on change because they were possible. And so as we celebrate today, but on December 1st, we celebrate and honor Rosa Parks in the state of Alabama, we must think about the path and how she opened the doors of opportunities wider for all of us to be able to walk, for people like young people like myself, to be able to walk down the road and be able to have an opportunity and live the American dream right here in Alabama. So we honor her and we thank her, and I thank you guys for your leadership, and I thank this community, this great state, for honoring her, and we'll continue to honor her. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm honored to be here this morning, and to Bishop C. Wright, my bishop as well. We continue the legacy of Richard Allen, who was a fighter. And as we come here to honor Ms. Rosa Parks and to establish a holiday, I'm fortunate enough on behalf of the Legislative Black Caucus to have lived here in Montgomery during that era. And I can tell you right now, it's a blessing to come here each and every day in the people's house and do the people's business, mainly because of Rosa Parks. You know, you can't even imagine the changes that's been made right here in Montgomery and in this country. But it's still a struggle, it's still a fight. And I challenge each and every one of you, as we celebrate, as we make this a holiday, that we continue the legacy, because I think that's what Mrs. Parks would want. For us to be united, for us to work together, and for us to maximize the things that she stood for, the things that she fought for, because it's on our shoulders now. It's up to us to make the difference. We can celebrate, we can do everything that we want to do, but unless we carry out the legacy, then we're making it difficult for our children and our grandchildren as well. It takes a lot so often to come down to serve in the legislature when you're in a super minority, to stand up for what's right, to stand up for what Mrs. Parks stood up for, to try to convince your colleagues that all of us are equal, that all of us deserve a right to be prosperous in this society. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for the opportunity, and I also thank you for the opportunity, and Ms. Parks for the opportunity to just have the pleasure to serve each and every one of you, because the Legislative Black Caucus, we represent blacks across the state, even where you do not have representatives. And we take that representation very serious. Thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you. We also have Speaker Mac McCutcheon and Representative Ledbetter. If you two would come forward with greetings, please, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
We certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning, and what a momentous occasion, and appreciate what Representative Hall is trying to do by creating Rosa Parks Day. You know, isn't it ironic that we stand in the house that the people of the state put us in, and because of the leaders before us, like Ms. Parks, the simple statements that that's heard the shot that was kind of heard around the world. I remember one quote that was said, "The courage, man or woman, when they stand, spines of men and women stand along with them." And I think that is so true because of the stance that Rosa Parks taken in 1955. A lot of men and women found themselves to be braver than what they thought they were. And I think that certainly speaks for that today. And we know that because of the road that she has paved for a lot of Alabamians, that we're in a better place today than we once were. So Ms. Hall, I want to thank you for what you're doing. I think it's such an important cause. So you have our support, you have my support, and I think it's a great day, and thank everyone for being in this house today.
Well, thank you, Representative Hall. Thank you for the initiative to recognize Rosa Parks and have a special day and a holiday for her. I think this is a great tribute to an individual that we had in this state that had a lot of courage. At the end of the day, when we look at our people as a whole, there's been some injustices over the years done. And when injustice is done, it takes people of courage that will stand up and voice their concerns and stand up for what's right. And when we recognize Rosa Parks, that's exactly what we're doing. We're recognizing an individual who had the courage to stand up when it was not popular, it was not advantageous, it was very difficult. Not knowing all of the challenges that she faced, of course, but at the end of the day, respecting everything that she done. Because as we work together, if we're going to accomplish anything in this state and in this nation, in this world, we must have respect for each other. We must have respect for each other's rights. We must have respect for each other as individuals. And that is so important. It's important to me as I sit in this chair over this body and I see the individuals here. I see legislators that are elected by people of this state to represent them. I don't see people who are more important than the other. I see we're all together here. We say that this is the people's house. Well, if it is the people's house, then it needs to be represented by all of the people, all of the people. Sometimes we get all caught up in politics and we talk about the D's and the R's and those kind of things, but I can honestly say at the end of the day, it's about representing the people of Alabama and trying to find what's best for everybody. And it's because, and I really mean this, and it's because of individuals like Rosa Parks and others that I know in history that stood up and had the courage to stand up for what's right, that we all can carry that legacy forward. And we should be very thankful for this. And Representative Hall, again, I want to say my prayers and support are with you in this initiative. And of course, I love Miss Laura. She's home folks to us. Excuse me for saying that, but she's home folks to us there in our area, and I've known her for many, many years and have a great deal of respect for her. So thank you so much for having us, and hey, I'm glad you're in the people's house. This is very appropriate.
Good morning. I'm Senator Gerald Isle, and I wear another hat. I have the pleasure of being the chairman of the Board of Trustees at Troy University. And way before this day, Troy University recognized Miss Rosa Parks with the Rosa Parks Museum. Thanks to Mr. Mar Higgins, who is on our board, and Chancellor Hawkins and other members of the board. We early on realized how important Ms. Parks was to this community and this state and this nation as well. The Rosa Parks Museum, as most of you know, is one of the nicest attractions in Alabama. It receives thousands and thousands of kids get to see the sacrifice Miss Rosa Parks made and understand how important that is. So I want to join with my friend. Let me tell you, when you got a senator like Vivian Figures upstairs, the bill's going to pass, but I'm going to help you, Senator, because I know how hard she works on the issues and what a dedicated person she is and how well she represents her district. Ms. Hall, thank you for beginning this initiative. I know you're going to hear from Dr. Hawkins in a minute, but I just wanted to bring you greetings from all the Board of Trustees at Troy University because, as you know, we passed that bill and we got the process going, and Lamar Higgins led the effort, and now we have a world-class facility that people come to and can realize the great sacrifice Ms. Parks made and what it means to our state. God bless you, and thanks for letting me be here today. Thank you.
Praise the Lord, saints. Come on, let's hear it. Praise the Lord, saints. Man, ain't no way without the Lord. We be sitting up in there talking about Rosa Parks, what we gonna do for her today. Give it up. Y'all know that. You know it. You know it. You know, and I couldn't, I was driving like a bat out of you know what to get down here. You know, because I wanted to make sure I got here for this moment. You know what she went through. Y'all know. You know what she went through. You know, and you know the sacrifices that she made. You know, and if for people who don't know, you need to look at the movie. You need to look at the picture. It would depict everything. The courage of a woman. A courage of a woman. Let's give these women a big round of applause. The courage of a woman. The courage of a woman. To stand up. To not be denied. Is the reason that we are here today. So I bring you also greetings from all the foot soldiers. All those people all those foot soldiers from Dynamite Hill in Birmingham, to Kellington Park, to the 16th Street Baptist Church, to the 4 Little Girls, because all that's in the District 18. That's why I'm bringing you greetings. We understand the importance of institutions. We understand the importance of not forgetting where we came from. All of us. So we won't make those mistakes as we move forward. We understand the sacrifices that everybody has to make. Because when the things that were accomplished, it wasn't just folks out there look like us. It was folks look like them too. It was folks, all of us was out there together. Because we were standing up for what's right. And that's what we have to continue to do, to be a beacon light and a voice for all our people so that they will understand that we have to move forward together because together we will succeed or separately we will perish. So I leave you with that thought and just to tell you that I appreciate what you ladies are doing. I'm just so proud of y'all. I don't know what to do. I want you to know that. And hey, you know, I want to just tell you this quickly. My mother helped raise me because my father at that time was an invalid. And so I was raised by a woman. And I was raised by a strong black woman. And I'm going to tell you something. I have all the appreciation for you all and all the respect and love for you all. And whatever I can do to help, I'm going to do that. Now I end like I started. All who agree, with what you've heard and what's been said. Let's say amen.
Short hymn might get it started. Okay, all right, thank you. I am also honored that there are many other colleagues from the House. I would ask each one of you if you would please stand so that you can be recognized. I see Representative Marika Coleman, Representative Barbara Gumman, Representative Barbara Board, Representative Mary Moore, Representative Lawrence, what am I missing? Representative McClammy, Representative Clark, and Senator Coleman. Give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. And Representative Jackson, thank you all so much for being here and sharing this time with us. So the next part of the program will be tributes that will be given, and they are as printed on the program. And Mrs. Parks' education will be Dr. Oh, you do? Dr. Rolla, you do? Okay, Dr. Kevin Roll for Executive Director Assistant at Alabama Alabama State University. That's all right. Mrs. Parks' faith will be given by Bishop Harry C. Wright, the presiding bishop for District 9 of the AME Church, and Mrs. Parks' legacy will be given by Chancellor Dr. Jack Hawkins at Troy University. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hall. Senator Figgis, Representative Hall, thank you. Bishop Seawright, thank you also, sir. On behalf of Quentin Ross, who's away and en route back to the great state of Alabama, who was in Washington doing university business, on behalf of the more than 4,500 students who matriculate on South Jackson Street, on behalf of the alums, stakeholders, and friends, I greet you today. You know, when I think about when I was driving over here, the boss told me on the plane, said, you got to say some words from me about Rosa Louise Parks. And when I found out that Senator Figgis and Representative Hall was the beacons to lead this piece, I thought about the fight that used to be, the fight that continues to be. Then I thought about if she would have been here right now, when she went home to be with the Lord from 2013, 2005, she would have been on this earth 3,580 days. Is that a long time? And I can imagine right now she looking down and say, here we go again. Here we go again. And that these fine people decided to attempt to try to make happen a legacy, a day to recognize the struggle. Rosa Louise Parks matriculated in the hollow grounds of Alabama State University. That is the team that beat Alabama A&M in football last year. So, I just want to make sure we got that straight. And that's the team that's going to continue to beat them in football going forward. But on behalf of Dr. Ross, who, like I said, is away, who's in the process of coming home, we want to thank you for the thought. We want to thank you for the prosperity. We want to thank you that you would take this time out your busy schedule. We know the legislative body is mad at work right now. I know my boss, as everyone knows, was 18-year veteran of this robust group, and I know he misses some days because I joke with him all the time. But we want you to know that we're going to support whatever they do, whatever you say. And on behalf of the family at Alabama State University, we want to thank you up front in advance for your efforts to make this happen. Thank you.
First of all, as always, we greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We thank God for this being the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for this honor. We are so happy to have the opportunity to come here and stand to make this petition on behalf of a wonderful, mighty woman of God, a lady that was used by God in a magnificent way. And as has already been said, he gave the number of hours that she was up on the face of the earth, but we know that at age 42, she had courage to take that stand in 1955. 62 years ago, on December the 1st, 1955, she refused to give up her seat. She would have been 105 years of age if she was still alive. I can never forget first coming to Montgomery, Alabama, and reading a historic post that says at the time of the Emancipation Proclamation, the state of Alabama had more slaves than any other state in the Union. And to stand here this day and to have Representative Hill and Senator Hall, I got my eye in my ignorance stuff, I'm sorry. Representative Hall, and to have Senator Figures to help sponsor this bill, and to have our own AME representative, Brother Lamar Higgins. Thank you. Thank you for making good on your position as a trustee at Troy University, and to have a chairman of the board as well as a chancellor like Dr. Jack Hawkins supporting the Rosa Parks Museum, and to have the many persons around the state to allow that museum to be built. Well, we thank God for this day being called a day of courage, because courage means to take a stand in the face of fear, and she did that. I came this morning to thank God for her faith, to thank God that she believed in the Lord Jesus Christ. Rosa Parks was an African Methodist Episcopal Church member. She served the church as a student. Right. I've had the opportunity as a pastor of 35 years before being elected a bishop to appoint many persons to become students. And the discipline says that you should seek out women who are devout Christians, people who are sincere and respected, not only by their peers, but persons in the community. Women who are willing to live out their faith. And Sister Rosa Parks did that. She loved God. She was willing to take a stand. She surrounded herself by people like the father of Reverend Duncan, her pastor, and the St. Paul AME Church family that stands right here in Montgomery. It is so ironic that I just spoke at Bloody Sunday in Selma this past week, celebrating the civil rights movement and what sacrifices have been made. To come back to Montgomery today and to stand is nothing more than a blessing from the Lord. I thank God for the 9th Episcopal District that covers the whole state of Alabama, all 285 churches, all 20 to 50,000 constituents, to petition and ask you to please let us honor this woman. It started in Montgomery. It started in Alabama. What happens in Alabama affects the whole nation. It affects the whole world. So let's do it. And we can say that we have joined with 3 other states. We have started for the 4 other states. And now we will continue a movement that not only will we have a Dr. Martin Luther King Day, but we will also have Dr. Rosa Parks Day. Thank you.
Surely God is in this place today. I want to thank my bishop too, because Troy University has become the summer home of the AME.
What a pleasure it is for me to join you this morning, and I'm delighted that our future is in this room as well. I'm proud of the students from Troy University, and I'm also proud of the students from Johnny Carr Middle School, who are the future students at Troy University. I think one of the great memories that I have was working with Miss Johnny Carr as we planned and built and opened the Rosa Parks Museum, and I appreciate so much Senator Dial speaking to that. You know, and what a remarkable day this is, and what a remarkable place and time this is. In 1861, about 100 meters from here, you saw the cradle of the Confederacy born. And then 94 years later in this very city, we saw the modern civil rights initiated when Miss Parks stood up by sitting down on December the 1st, 1955. And then 45 years later, we were very proud as a university, and I too echo the accolades very appropriately given to Mr. Lamar Higgins. If it had not been for Mr. Higgins, we wouldn't have the Rosa Parks Museum. But we opened that facility, and I'm very pleased to tell you that in 2018, the year that this legislation will be adopted by this august legislature, we will welcome the 1 millionth visitor to the Rosa Parks Museum. I might tell you, too, that our children really didn't understand the story of Rosa Parks, and it was 6 years later that we opened the Cleveland Avenue, or the Children's Time Machine in the Children's Center there, next door to the museum. And it was because so many children today didn't identify with that period of segregation, Bishop. They couldn't identify with those separate water fountains and restrooms. And so we offered them a history lesson. In 22 minutes, you can get a remarkable history lesson from Jim Crow up to the bus boycott. And we help them understand, and then they go to the museum. But let me tell you a personal story. 3 months after we opened that museum, the children's wing in 2006, my wife and I were part of a university delegation, several university presidents and chancellors invited to South Africa. And just before we launched that trip, a request had come in from Soweto, South Africa, the outside of Johannesburg, from the library director who had just been appointed, and the State Department had given a building to the community. They were opening a library. They named it after Miss Rosa Parks. This library director asked for some memorabilia, and I carried with me a book that had been owned by Miss Parks and autographed by Miss Parks, and I carried that to that ceremony in Soweto. As I reflect on that day with tears streaming down her cheeks, I'll never forget the lady that accepted that book. I believe I could have had $1 million in one hand and that book that was owned by Miss Parks in the other, and she would have reached out and taken that book. It occurred to me at that particular moment the magic and the universal nature of the name Rosa Parks. You know, Montgomery doesn't own Rosa Parks. Alabama doesn't own Miss Rosa Parks. Alabama nor the nation doesn't own Rosa Parks. The world owns Rosa Parks. And I think in closing my brief comments, as I reflected upon the Miss Parks that we had the privilege to get to know more than 20 years ago, it always struck me that she was the essence of leadership because she believed in unity of all people, and real leadership is not about dividing people. Leadership is about pulling people together. Senator Figures and Representative Hall and all the other policymakers in this body, please know that Troy University, and Senator Dial said it so well, Troy University supports the designation and dedication of the Rosa Parks Day, and we would love to see that on December the 1st every year. May God bless her memory. Thank you so much.
Another round of applause for our individuals who did the tribute. Thank you so much. We're also honored today to have Mr. Wayne Reynolds, who had the privilege of interviewing Mrs. Parks. And he is also presently chairman of the Global Institute for Freedom and Justice. Mr. Reynolds?
I'd like to thank Lamar Higgins for inviting me to this wonderful occasion. You know, Rosa Parks was a friend of mine, and you're probably thinking, why would that be? So for more than 50 years, I've run an organization that brings together world leaders with the next generation of young leaders, and Rosa Parks would come to that program in the 1990s. And you know, I witnessed firsthand the courage of Rosa Parks, because in Sun Valley, Idaho in 1995, she came to our program there. 1996, actually. And the first evening, I had set up an Indian encampment outside of Sun Valley, Idaho. And so in my wisdom, I said I would have an authentic hay ride out to the Indian encampment. And so I jumped on a wagon, and inside the wagon was Rosa Parks and 4 Nobel Prize winners. And so I said, how fantastic. Well, what happened next was that the team of horses were scared by something and took off across the field as fast as they could with us inside. And so all I could think of, my God, the headline the next day, Rosa Parks and 4 Nobel Prize winners and 1 unknown person perished last night. But you know, and looking at, my eyes were as big as saucers, and she was calm as could be. And I figured, how could this possibly be? And the reason was, you know, she had the power of faith and hope and courage and love. And I always just, the one thing I took away from her is that, you know, you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to make a difference. You just have to believe that you can make a difference. You know, I live in Washington, D.C., and last week, our other friend, Reverend Billy Graham, lay in state in the U.S. Capitol. There's only 2 private citizens in the history of our country that had that honor. One, Reverend Billy Graham, and the other, Rosa Parks in 2005. What an extraordinary person she was. And the commentators on TV were questioning, why would Reverend Billy Graham be so honored? And they mentioned that, you know, he preached to about 250 million people. And really, the reason he was given that honor was he preached the gospel of Jesus Christ. And you know what? Rosa Parks preached the gospel of freedom and justice. Which is actually why I'm here today. Because a couple of things happened this last few months. One is we have developed and starting to create a Global Institute for Freedom and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama, ideally across from the federal courthouse. Because 1955 was a turning point in the history not only of Montgomery and of our country, but of the world. And no matter if you go to South America, China, Russia, everybody knows the name Rosa Parks. I mean, it's a phenomenon of incredible proportions. But 3 people's lives came together in December of 1955 that most people don't know about. One is Judge Frank Johnson was appointed to the federal bench in November 1955 by President Eisenhower. And 3 weeks after he went on the federal bench, the youngest federal judge in the country, Rosa Parks, was arrested, as you all know, on a bus basically across the street from the federal courthouse. And when the Montgomery boycott started, there were 2 older, more distinguished preachers in town, but they thought they'd give the opportunity to a young 26-year-old preacher who had just moved to Montgomery, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. So the fact that destiny brought together these 3 people to change the course of history is extraordinary. And so we're creating a global institute not only to tell that story, but to be the gateway and home of the new U.S. Civil Rights Trail, so that young people will go through this institute and not only learn about what happened in 1955, But I bet you they'll leave that institute wanting to be the next Rosa Parks, the next Reverend King, and the next Judge Frank Johnson. So really, you know, every day is Rosa Parks Day. You're going to have an official day of December 1st, but in the world, every day is Rosa Parks, not only because she's so well remembered, but we all carry with us the legacy of what she had the courage to do. And the other thing I'd like to close is my wife and I funded this week, which hasn't been announced, at the Library of Congress, an exhibit about Rosa Parks, because they were left her personal effects. So there'll be an extraordinary exhibit at the Library of Congress, which will then tour the country. So my wife and I are pleased to actually donate to that to make that happen. So I hope that I can meet each and every one of you to tell you along the way what we're going to do in Montgomery. But you know, this is going to have such extraordinary effect on the country, because there is a civil rights trail, but there's no beginning or end to it. And of course, the natural place to start the civil rights trail is at the birthplace of civil rights on that block in Montgomery, Alabama. And we're going to get 1 million people a year here to go through that institute. So thank you very much.
So I want to say thank you to each one of you. Another round of applause for all of our presenters and participants. We've had other legislators to come in. I'd like for you to raise your hand. Representative Booth, Representative Hollis, Representative Bracy. Anyone else? All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Senator Singleton, thank you. I would also like to recognize an individual who has never forgotten about the civil rights movement and its work, and has continued to work in that effort. As a matter of fact, she, in order for her to stay young, she surrounds herself with young people. That is none other than Ms. Doris Crenshaw. Would you all give a round of applause to Ms. Doris Crenshaw? We applaud you for your work. Say thank you for never forgetting, and we are honored that you chose to be here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We would ask the praise team if they would give us one more selection, and then at the end, after they do their selection, Pastor Duncan, would you please come forward and end us with prayer, please? Thank you.